Okay, so we are just outside the Hotel Dieu.
11:45.
This is one of the tourist offices of the town, and this is the end of the market. And the market will still be there until lunchtime, so you'll have plenty of time to look at that. I'll make sure of that, don't worry. This hospital was founded by Nicholas Rollin. He was the Chancellor of Philip the Good, the third great Valois Duke of Burgundy, and he founded the building in 1443. He said that he wanted to make a palace for the poor. It was a hospital for the poor. This term, Hotel Dieu, literally means the house of God, because they treated the soul as much as the body. There wasn't probably much you could do for the body. But also, the whole of this concerned the soul of Nicholas Rollin himself. The idea was that by founding a hospital for the poor, he would save his soul. And he was a very rich man. You can imagine responsible for collecting taxes, not only as Chancellor, not only in Burgundy here, but Burgundy also owned Flanders. Philip the Bold, the first great Valois Duke, had married Marguerite of Flanders and had inherited territory that we think of today as Holland, Belgium and northern France. All of that belonged to Burgundy. So Nicholas Rollin, a very rich man, wanted to build something that would show his riches and his prestige and would impress God, if you like, with the amount of money that he had spent. So that's why it's such an impressive building. You will have noticed that, well, it's almost as if you have to pay to get inside to see the pretty roof, because the roof on the outside is very plain. If you look at this roof up here, it's simple slate. It's only on the inside that we get these multicoloured varnished tiles. But in the Middle Ages, it was that side that would have impressed more than this side. Because slate is not a local product. It had to come from the Ardennes, from the north of Flanders, and in the Middle Ages the cost of a material was the cost of its transport. So people in the Middle Ages would have walked in here and looked at that rather than this. These are perfectly ordinary terracotta tiles, coloured and varnished. Glazed, and so it's very easy to do. They overlap a lot. You only see about a third of the surface, and if you see one individual tile, you find that only the bottom part of it is actually coloured. The advantage and disadvantage of this building is that they've always been rich enough to renew and repair things as they went along. Here, the tiles that we see today are tiles from 1907, so they're just about 100 years old, that's all. But we know that they are in the same colours and the same pattern as the tiles were in the Middle Ages. If you look at the decoration of the rest of the building, we've got this part here is particularly decorated. You can contrast it with the rest, actually. The wood and the lead work is much more elaborate here. That's because this was where important guests were housed. This is what was known as the bedroom of the king. So this is why this is more decorated than the rest. It's decorated in the flamboyant Gothic style. So you've got this ogee arch with a kink in the top, and all this elaborate decoration in the lead work. Look at the dormer windows, the crockets that go up to a sun, and then eventually a weather vane. You were not supposed to have a weather vane unless you were of noble birth. So Nicholas Rollin is really making a statement here with the number of weather vanes that they are. And of course he was not of noble birth, but he could buy as many weather vanes as he liked. The contrast between the two sides of the building is, if you like, that this was the side of the building where the serious matter of curing the sick took place. This is where the hospital room was, and this was the domestic side with the pharmacy and the kitchen and so on. Later, the hospital rooms started to spill into this part, but originally that was the idea. And this looks like a beautiful house in the 15th century in Stratford-on-Avon, with the crisscross woodwork, which is typical again of the 15th century. Right, let's go on inside. Would they say male and female? Yes, they would. It's known as the Room of St. Hugh. The rooms tend to be named after the patron saint of the man who founded the room. So this was founded by Hugh Beto, who was an advisor to Louis XIV. So here we're in the 17th century. The attitude to the poor was starting to change a little bit, and also the attitude to morality was changing. We've already remarked that in the first room, people would have been all mixed up together, women, children, and men, women, and children. But here in this room, when it was first founded, it became a men's room to be able to separate the men from the women and children in the other room. In the 17th century, also, they're starting to think of the poor as a danger out in the streets. Louis XIV required every town to found a general hospital to lodge, nourish, and confine beggars and the children of beggar parents. So attitudes are changing, and that becomes a workhouse, exactly. The decoration is all from the 17th century. These are paintings by an artist called Isaac Mouillon that show resurrections and healings. You've got healings by Christ, and also above the altar by St. Hugh, who revived two boys who had died of the plague. The beds in this room are the beds that were in use in the 19th century. They've got some interesting details. There are shelves for your belongings, and a warming pan, and a rope for pulling yourself up.
Et déchets de tous ordres. Les feux sont ravivés, l'eau chaude, les déjeuners composés de lait et d'un peu de pain sont prêts. Maintenant, l'approvisionnement commence. Pas besoin de sortir des domaines de l'Hôtel-Dieu, car ce haut lieu de charité a toujours su garantir son approvisionnement.
This painting is by Roger van der Weyden, Roger of the Pastures. He was, if you like, the greatest Flemish artist of his day. And of course, all the influences here are coming from Flanders because of this link with the Dukes of Burgundy and their territories in Flanders. They were great patrons of the arts. It would have been commissioned from Jan van Eyck, but he died 2 years before the hospital was founded. And Roger van der Weyden was, if you like, his greatest pupil. Of course, it was done by the school of Roger van der Weyden, by a whole team of artists working together, because there's a tremendous, both at the same time, is that in the 19th century, they sawed through the depth of the painting to separate the front from the back, which we would never do today. But it doesn't pay. That's the idea. We like the visual pay. Silence to be interrupted when she visited convents to research the setting up of the order.